What is up, guys? My name is Ebenezer Frimpong and welcome back to the channel. So I just came back, well, not just came back. I got back from the mall about 3 or 4 hours ago, and I've been in here working since then. And while I was working, a great idea just like popped into my head. Hey, maybe you should record a video tonight. So it's almost 2 o'clock, and I set up my ring lights, brought out the camera just to make this video for you guys. And this video is going to be a little different than the normal videos that I usually make. It's going to be more of like a story time, because I'm going to tell you guys the story of why my very first Shopify dropshipping store was a complete failure. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to actually hop into that story very shortly. But before I do that, I want you guys to go ahead and go follow me on Instagram and Snapchat. Those are some of the fastest ways to reach out to me, actually. So Instagram, and I'll put my Instagram name and Instagram name tag right over here, and I'll put my Snapchat one over here. Right, so be sure to add me on Instagram and Snapchat, and though Instagram and Snapchat is the fastest way to reach me. But let's go ahead and roll the intro and get started with the story time. Okay, so let's start the story. You know, why was my very first Shopify dropshipping store a complete failure? Well, let's go back to the year. The year was 2013 or 2014. It was either my sophomore year or junior year in high school, between those, right? So here's the thing. I come from an African household. You're not going to get anything handed to you if you don't work for it. You have to work for everything you want, right? You're not going to get handouts in this household. It's not going to happen. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a business owner. I don't want to work for anyone, right? And I knew I had to get started as soon as possible, right? So, and prior to high school, I had actually already learned about a little about e-commerce. And technically this store that I'm about to tell you about isn't really my first store. My first actual store was back in 7th or 8th grade. But this was my first dropshipping store. I actually knew what dropshipping was at this point. I went to Google and I did some research, and I found out that women shop the most online. You know, women spend the most money online according to Google. So that's what I found out. So what I decided to do was to build a online women's clothing store, a women's boutique, right? And that's what I wanted to do. So I remember telling my younger brother, he's like 2 years younger than me. So told him about it, and he came up with the name. And he came up with the name for it. So I was like, okay, that name sounds good. And at the time, I didn't know how to build a Shopify store. I didn't know how to build. The first online store I built in 7th or 8th grade was complete garbage. But I actually got sales on that store. But that's a story for a completely different day. But I didn't really know how to build a Shopify store. I didn't know how to build a BigCommerce store. But in my head, I kind of knew what an online store, a great online store, was supposed to look like. And I didn't know that, you know, dropshipping really came from AliExpress. I didn't know you used AliExpress as your supplier. What I thought was, you know, you actually have to find a supplier in the US, right? So what I did was I typed in women's clothing store, not women's clothing store, women's clothing dropshippers, right? I think that's what I typed in. I'm not quite sure. All of these things is also what led up to me getting into high ticket, right? Because right from the beginning, I didn't really know about AliExpress and stuff like that. So I was always thinking that my suppliers had to be in the US. I knew what dropshipping was at this point, but I thought my suppliers had to come from the US. So I typed in women's clothing dropshippers, and I came across a company called Bella V. And I think if I can find their logo or their URL or whatever, I'll put it right here. Or their website, I'll put it in here somewhere. Came across a website called Bella V. And went to their website. The website looked really professionally well built. It didn't look scammy at all. They had turnkey websites. You can pay them and they'll build your dropshipping store for you. They had the inventory. They'll hook up their inventory to the back end of your store, so you don't have to worry about keeping track of inventory. Everything sounded so good. Like, I was like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna go with this service. You know, they're gonna automatically link to the back end of my store. I won't have to worry about tracking inventory. They'll upload all the images. I'll pay them. They'll build the store for me. I just run it, and cool. Everything sounded great. Now, I did go ahead and Google the company Bella V, reviews, Bella V scams, stuff like that. And I Googled it, and there was a ton of complaints, right? A normal person would have stopped right there, right? But there was a ton of complaints. I read the complaints, and I'm like, crap, you know. But some of the complaints Bella V responded to and explained it. So in my head, the complaints didn't really matter, right? But even though there was a ton of them, I think there was like one from Ripoff Report. There was a bunch of just bad reviews about Bella V. But I was so excited that I let excitement really cloud my judgment. And I still went ahead and decided to work with them anyway. And at the time, I didn't have a job, right? I didn't have a job. I'm in high school. I think I was looking for a job. Yeah, I was looking for a job at that point, but I didn't have a job. So what I did was, I called my dad, and I told him about it. I told him this is what I want to do, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, okay. So just like Donald Trump, I also got a $1 million loan from my dad to start my dropshipping business. Obviously, I'm kidding. I didn't get a $1 million loan, but so yeah, my dad gives me money, right? He sends over money. He's like, okay, you know, go ahead and, you know, build your business with the money I sent you. So I'm like, cool. Bella V's site was the turnkey website. I believe that was $500, right? So I paid $500 for that. And now that I think about it, it wasn't even a Shopify store. They actually built it on BigCommerce. I buy the domain name, they build the store for me. Boom, I have a great store. And then I went ahead and went to pay for, I got a DBA registered in Ohio, right? For the store name, I got a DBA. It was a sole proprietorship. Got a DBA registered for it. And I thought I was the shit. I had my own business. You know, I was walking around with my head up high. I was such a dweeb. Oh my goodness. But, you know, so I got the DBA. I have my site up. The sales should be rolling in. So, and I'm paying for this monthly BigCommerce service. First month, 0 sales. Second month, 0 sales. I'm still paying for the monthly service. Third month, 0 sales. Fourth month, 0 sales. Right? At this point, the third and fourth month, I'm starting to get depressed because I feel like, you know, I have a great site. My prices are good. My prices are auto updating. I didn't do any research into pricing psychology either, right? I didn't do any research. Like, I was basically going in blind thinking I had everything figured out. Right, so third and fourth month, I'm very sad. I'm basically depressed. Like, I've made no money from the store, and the reason being is I didn't market the store. All right, in my head, I was like, okay, once the store is built, the customers should come. And the way I thought Google worked was once you built the site, you submit your URL to Google Search Console. So I actually did submit my URL to Google Search Console, and I thought once you submit it, that's what the search ads was, the shopping ads was, the ads that were on Google's homepage when you look for something. I thought those, I didn't even know they were really, I was a complete moron. I didn't even know they were really ads, right, at the time, right? I thought that's what SEO was, submitting your URL, and then when people will search for stuff that the same things you were selling, Google will automatically populate it up there on the search results, and, you know, they would come by. So I thought I should be getting sales by now. I did everything correctly, right? I submitted my URL. I should be getting sales. Google should be bringing in the customers, bringing in the traffic. The total time spent of 4 months, whatever, there has been a total of like 30 visitors on my store. Like I was sad. I was sad about it. I was depressed. I remember calling a friend of mine, a really close friend of mine at the time, and actually like crying to her. Like I was upset. I was basically depressed because I thought like I did everything right. Why wasn't this working? And I didn't tell my dad. I was not going to call him and be like, hey, I'm failing. No, that was not going to happen. But with that store, I kept it running. I kept paying for the monthly fees every single month and no sales. But it sounded good. Like just telling people you're a business owner sounded so good. It sounded so cool. Felt like a big shot. But in reality, the store made zero money. I was literally throwing money away every single month. Until one day, a friend of mine, she checked out my site. And then she checked out the site. She saw these boots, right? I actually had class with her. So she looked at the boots and she went to Google and copied the name of the boots from my site and put it into Google. I was selling those same boots for $120, right? And she put them into Google. She put the same boots into Google, and they came up for somewhere between $60 on a bunch of different sites. A bunch of different other sites were selling the exact same thing for between 60 to 70 bucks. I was the only, and I didn't even come up when she searched, right? I didn't come up for it at all. My site was the only one selling it for $120. So right there triggered me to do some more research on Bella V, right? And I did more research, and that's when it really started to sink in. I've been scammed. I had been bamboozled, right? The suppliers sucked. My products were, basically, I was technically buying my products at the retail cost, and Bella V was buying that retail cost and reselling it to me for like $90, and then they would list it on your store for $120, right? So I was being bamboozled, but Bella V isn't the one to take full blame. I should have went out there and learned marketing. I should have learned how to sell online, but I should have learned, how to properly dropship, right? How to get onto Google advertising, Google shopping, right? I should have learned all those things. I should have found a better supplier. I should have known maybe, I should have listened to my gut feeling the first time I was looking at Bella V and realized they had a ton of complaints. But basically, yeah, that's how my first dropshipping store was a complete failure. I was super naive. I thought I'd build the store, customers will come. I ended up working with a supplier that's super shady. And fun fact, Bella V has actually rebranded themselves after all those scams, after all those complaints. They're based in LA. They've completely rebranded. They now go by a new name called Collective Fab, and I'll put the screenshot right up here. They're in the Shopify store. I would highly recommend you do not use them, because I've checked out Collective Fab and they do the exact same thing. Do not recommend them at all. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is how my first store was a complete failure. Learn from my mistakes. Most of you guys just getting started now are much smarter than me when I first got started, right? You actually know about advertising, you know about Google shopping ads, you know about Google search, you know about Facebook ads, you know about all of these things that I didn't know. I thought I was building it, customers were gonna come. But the most important thing here is, yes, I let it get to me. I got sad, got depressed, but I didn't stop. All right, I didn't stop. I knew, and at the time, there wasn't a bunch of YouTube gurus, that I could learn from. There wasn't. I never came across any of them. Right, this whole YouTube guru scene really started like a year ago, to be honest. Right, there was no one out there teaching me this that I could learn from. I was doing my own research. I was doing my own Googles, reading tons of articles, testing. Once I started figuring out, okay, this is what I need to do, testing, losing my own money. Right? I had no one to really learn from. I had to learn from, my own mistakes. So you guys are in a much better position than I am when I got started, but just don't quit, right? Don't quit. It doesn't matter if, your first store sucks. Most people have three failed stores. And my timeline, it went failed store, right? The 7th, 8th grade failed store. And then this store that I just told you about, failed store. And then my next store was a success. And then the next store actually after that one, directly after that one, was also a failure. So failure happens. You're gonna fail, right? But when every failure that Every time you fail, you learn, right? So now I know that if you build it, they will not come. You have to drive traffic to it. They will not just come. You have to go get them. Right? I know that now. I also know that Google Shopping campaigns are my best friend. I know that now. I also know that because I've done print on demand. I also know that from my experience, you cannot use someone's likeness because your print on demand supplier will not print it, right? So I've learned a lot from all the mistakes that I've been through throughout the years, and that's what's important. So that is all for the story. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And actually, I want you guys to share your failures down in the comments with me. And be sure to follow me on Instagram and Snapchat. And I'll see you guys next time.
Pull out the Lambos, we bout have a race. I put on the seatbelt in case. Like future my diamonds, they jump out the face. Can't even seek in his grace. Get some so rock, we just put up the ace. Stars in the roof of the rain. Praying to God, yeah, I'm keeping my faith. You don't wanna get out of place. Making this money, I just keep going. Not gonna stop till my bank overflow.